Member Andrew William.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair, and I wish to speak on behalf of New Zealand First in terms of the national government's economic failure. This government, that despite 40 years, the best 40 years in terms of trade, because of the dairy boom that they're having, manages to put this economy in a perilous state. With 150,000 unemployed people, more than when they came into office, significantly more than when they came into office, and now with $60 billion in government debt, while New Zealand's net international debt has risen to $150 billion, a staggering sum. And that government debt of $60 billion is 10 times what the national government inherited from the former Labour government supported by New Zealand First. 10 times the debt, which was $6 billion when National took office. Meanwhile, what are we seeing, Mr Chair? We're seeing Kiwi workers with virtually static wages. Those on low to middle income are virtually seeing static wages. Sure, the bosses and the very high paid are getting significant increases, but those who are out there at the coalface are not seeing the same rewards. We're seeing 154,000 work visas issued in the last year to come into this country, while there are 150,000 on the dole. And those 154,000 work visas included the likes of 40 to go to people who came in as supermarket checkout operators. That is hardly great policy on the part of the national government to bring people in to work in our supermarkets. Mr Chair, we're also seeing the end of home ownership dream for young Kiwis. The housing bubble in Auckland is now seeing foreign speculators buying up many houses, people who aren't even living in Auckland, who are now pushing up the cost of housing to young Kiwi families and young Kiwis trying to get on the ladder. This government refuses to step in and stop speculative purchasing by foreigners and people who don't even live in this country. New Zealand First will change that when we're in government. We will ensure that people have to live here, be residents and be citizens here, residents or citizens here, before they can buy property. They do that in Australia. They have the same restrictions in Australia. Why not here? Because this government turns a blind eye to it and allows foreign speculation to drive up the prices, particularly in the likes of Auckland and Christchurch. At the same time, this government is not putting a stop to the sale of land and other strategic assets, such as the 19 Crayford farms and other significant farms that are being sold around. They're not stopping that. They're allowing some of the best of our production land to disappear overseas. And all the while, they sell off public assets that have been built up by my parents, my grandparents, their parents in turn, and all your parents and grandparents, generations who built up the assets of this country. They've sold off our silverware for a miserable $5 billion or less, just so they can pay the next 6 months of debts, while the Honourable John Banks says it's going up by $100 million a week in debt. Well, this government is taking a miserable $5 billion from selling the best assets we have so that it can help try and keep a lid on the debt. In so doing, they're losing some $900 million a year in revenue from those assets. And that is an absolute tragedy. That the best, it's like giving away your ATM machines. It's like giving away your best earning companies if you're in private enterprise, and then wondering why in a year or so's time, where did all those good cash revenue earning companies go that were previously owned by the government? Disappeared down the track. Also, at the same time, regional economies being neglected. The likes of this government not being prepared to put in $4 million to keep the Napier-Gisborne railway line open. A miserable, small amount of money to keep a whole region vibrant in terms of that East Coast area. An area which has high unemployment, which could do with the continuation of a rail link. At the same time, they're not retaining important infrastructure like the hillside railways in Dunedin. So we see this week where Chinese engines are being bought and full of asbestos, 40-odd engines, while they're closing down the hillside railway workshops. Those workshops, in conjunction with international providers, could have built those engines or assembled the engines or indeed put a huge amount of componentry into those engines, and I'm sure as a result we would not now be seeing asbestos in our trains. At the same time, we're seeing the likes of MFAT buying ferries in Bangladesh to go to the Tokelau Islands. Where is this government stepping in and saying we should be supporting very good local industry to build boats here to go to the Pacific Islands.
I call the honourable member Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The proposition put forward by the potential Greens Labor administration to get more food into the belly of the poor seems to be yet more redistribution on top of what we do already. I heard Mr. Norman say we leave the poor to rot. What nonsense. We have a tax system and a working for family system that through cash payments to lower income families for a family of two earning around $50,000 a year, which means that they get more back in the working for families than they pay in tax, as well as largely free education, as largely free healthcare and superannuation. That's an incredible amount of redistribution, which we do because we value the vulnerable in society, and that's what governments and this national government has been committed to. The national government's approach in order to get food into the belly of young children is to create the conditions where their parents are more likely to have a job and to grow the economy so that we can afford good health and education, so we can afford the welfare to support those who are most vulnerable in difficult times. And it's ironic when you get the members of the Greens standing up when they oppose everything that we do in order to create more wealth in this country. They oppose every free trade agreement that we try to do, notwithstanding the immense wealth that has been created through the New Zealand-China free trade agreement to take one example. They oppose the dairy industry at every turn. They oppose oil and gas exploration. They always call for more regulation, and over on the Labor side they're always wanting more taxes such as capital gains.